This is our third trip as a group of 4 guys. First one to Vietnam, second one to Laos, and now this one, Kashmir. Fran is a route planner and he spends his time not watching TV, but watching Google Earth. Any Google Earth enthusiast is going to be fascinated by the Himalayas, and so the route was built. It was declared that Srinagar was going to be the best place to start for flight money and high altitude acclimatization.
How high are we? 17,982 feet. Highest what? Motorable. Oh, very nice.
It's not.
It's not.
It's a few north. It's a military road.
The realization of the political situation wasn't massively considered until after the flights were booked. Times were tense with Pakistan shooting down an Indian plane. I believe the airspace wasn't opened up until around 1 week before our trip, but no one seemed to care. It wasn't even really talked about. Srinagar was the poorest dump that I've ever seen. I've seen poor in Africa, but this really was on another level. Armed soldiers were absolutely everywhere as well. It really was intimidating for a first arrival. The realization that this was basically a war zone hit me, and I finally decided to show some interest into Fran's stories on the history of the place. Normally, I don't take anything seriously until I actually see it with my own eyes. This really did make me wake up and see where I was. It was a long overnight flight, but the poverty of Srinagar pushed us to head straight out of town after picking up our rental motorbikes. The first drive was a great one. We found a good back lane alternative to the highway, had an amazing pass on wet roads, and settled on a spectacular river for the night. The second day we were heading to Kargil. I remember being a bit disappointed on this drive, to be honest. The roads were normal, they were quite pretty, but it wasn't what I flew halfway around the world for. The night before, our first night, we had a shitty hotel. I discovered for the first time that there was no beer in the region for religious reasons, and now what I was feeling were average roads. I was wondering if we were really in the right place. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the great Himalayas that I was expecting. So I was on this road to Kargil where we had our first mechanical failure, driving along at around 70 kilometers an hour on a straight road, and Fran's bike just went up in smoke. He thought his bike was on fire and very quickly abandoned ship. We then thought the engine was fried, but closer inspection revealed the back brake caliper had jammed and melted. He was able to continue, but with no back brake for now. It wasn't the only incident of the day though. Vince had a very near fatal crash just 2 kilometers from Kargil city, coming out of a gas station, and he forgot that in India it's left-hand drive, which resulted in him having a head-on collision with a car. I didn't see the crash, but when we drove up it looked like a massacre scene that no one could survive. There was Vincent though, standing strong but clearly shaken up. Front flipped over the bike and onto the car roof. Great safety gear, and he walked away with nothing but a bruise. The car was totaled and the bike remains in an unknown condition to this day. This is where we had our first real experience with the Kashmir hospitality. The car crash victim set us up in his cousin's hotel. We promptly visited various mechanics with the car being towed behind. The crash victim fighting for a lower fixing price for us in mechanic shops. They were literally trying to get the damages down for us on a total car on an accident that we had caused. I think it's fair to say the normal people would take a rest day under the circumstances, but we decided to rent another bike while we waited for the new one from a rental company, and we headed off onto an off-road mountain pass. It turned out to be the greatest view that I've ever seen to date, and now I understand why we were in the Himalayas. This was our first taste of high altitude. Breathing was harder up there, but overall it was fine. Some of the other guys said they felt it hard on this first climb. This day had us up to 4,377 meters according to our stats. Day 4 was Kargil to Leh. I think it was average scenery with a lot of ground covered, 269 kilometers to be exact. Fran kept on darting into random side roads that resulted in beautiful little drives with dead ends. With a big drive to do, I wasn't sure if this was a good idea or not. Honestly, I recall getting pretty frustrated. But this is the nature of the group. Someone does something and it just happens. There is no saying no. It's just yes, yes, yes.
flat tire on the bike delivered yesterday. It was gonna happen. Oh wow, spaced off.
We knew that the tyre on the replacement bike that was delivered after Vincent's crash was an old one, but we couldn't find any mechanics on our route to replace it. Unfortunately, this hit us hard as we got a flat on a little off-road trail that we found toward the end of the day. When we came to fix the inner tube, it turned out that it had snapped at the stem. There was nothing that we could do. Anger hit the group at not having a replacement tube. Really, the rental company should have given us one, and we also should have requested one. This was a sloppy mistake all round. The only solution to the problem was to get the bike back down the mountain to find a truck to bring us to our final destination of Laos. After arriving in Laos after dark, getting dropped up by the truck and fixing the flat tire, Rob fell into a ditch looking for the hotel. This day was just never going to end.
The day is still not done, eh?
Laos to Pangong Lake. This was an interesting situation. We were told a local mafia aggressively stops people driving these roads, which meant we need an early start to beat their morning checkpoints.
7 a.m. breakfast. We woke up at 5, didn't we? 5. We left at 5:50. It's now 7. Skittles, granola bars, some craft chocolate, tea and coffee. World's highest cafe, they say. Is it? Maybe. Not bad.
On our journey, we did so many named and famous passes that they all blurred together. This day was probably the best day of driving for the group. The day that had passes, glorious scenery, and amazing open straights. Fran was a pack leader, and he was just plowing these roads at some speed. There were bumps and lumps in the road, but we were regularly getting air off, river crossings everywhere. It was just huge, huge fun.
Go, go, go.
Best piston view you've ever had.
Pangong Lake is a special and majestic place, but at 4,000 meters, I really struggled with this altitude. Just walking up the hill was a difficult and tiring challenge. Most of our days had been 10 hours plus, so for us, this turned out to be a short 7-hour drive, but it was high altitude and began to get pretty technical.
John, where are we?
Top of some mountain.
Yeah?
Tired.
With 5,000 plus meters.
Yeah.
Pretty sure we have about 50 switchbacks in front of us. Somehow I don't understand how I think I acclimatized. I don't know what happened.
Oh yeah.
Those American drugs. America.
We did stop to help people out. There were a lot of people stuck and stranded out there. They were going to be there all night, but there was just so many of them as the day went on, we just had to leave them be. The drive down to Keyong was a beautiful one, and with every descending meter, it got easier to breathe, and I could feel my consciousness coming back to me. It really was a refreshing feeling. I was literally counting down how many meters that I thought we had dropped. I was just desperate to feel normal again.
Boys, the one thing we've learned when we're up at 18,000 feet, some 5,000 meters, if the gas doesn't last as long, we're all very concerned. I've already lost a quarter tank. We've passed so far 6 Indian oil trucks. They look desperate to be robbed.
We've been off the grid for several days now, and when the internet popped back on, we got the news that India was revoking Article 370 from Kashmir. To cut a long story short, this meant that political tensions were going to be high. We didn't think too much of it at this point. A rest day is all we cared about, and we decided we'll evaluate our situation later. We bailed on our original route plans and headed for Manali over the famous Rohtang Pass. What should have been an easy and short journey turned into an all-day battle with traffic jams over narrow road. Army transport vehicles were moving out en masse, bystanders were cheering as they went by, and it was clear that this was an entire country preparing for war. When we finally settled in Manali and checked the news, the situation was now dire, with talks of internet blackouts, gas shortages, and even potential IEDs on the road into Srinagar.
There's no problem, just everybody's stuck. You're going to be here a very long time, many hours.
We were in Manali and we considered going back over the Rohtang Pass to do the beautiful Spiti Valley that we missed out earlier. We could have then flown home from Manali, basically avoiding all of the political unrest. This was the safe choice. Or we could go over the Rohtang Pass through Keyong and basically do a shortcut route back to Srinagar, giving us plenty of time if the Indian Army rejected us. The third option was to go south into India and then re-evaluate our situation in Dharamshala, where there is an airport. However, doing this route, if we wanted to continue to Srinagar, where our flights home were from, we needed to go over the famous and dangerous Sach Pass, putting us into a point of no return where there would be no time to bail out if we needed to. This is the route that we chose, and it became an incredibly stressful and tense time.
If we head towards Srinagar, everyone's going to remain stressed. Family and friends are stressed. So what I say, we do the Spiti loop, chill out, and we arrange transport on a new flight either from Manali or left. But if we continue to Srinagar, it's going to remain a great area for the rest of the holiday. All agree?
My speech meant nothing, and we didn't agree. The decision was made to do the Sach Pass. The drive to the Sach Pass through Dharamshala and Chamba turned out to be great, very similar to Vietnam where we're used to, with a lot of greenery and beautiful villages and small valleys. Low altitude was a saviour, and I was incredibly happy to be out of the mountains. There was a lot of highway, but we broke it up with some back roads, and there was a clear culture shift from Kashmir to India. I was glad to see India on this holiday. We cruised this drive, used the drone and took lots of pictures. For the most part, the lingering politics was behind us.
My thoughts. We're in Chamba, and then we're gonna Killar tomorrow. Hopefully a little bit past Killar, like 50k. We have to go to the border of Kashmir. If anybody reads the news, it's very unlikely we're gonna make it in.
Fake news. I'm telling you, easy ride.
Hold this. Tell us your thoughts.
I'm telling everyone right here that it will be no issue whatsoever. I feel like the news has been blown up to shit because of bad politics. But we'll just drive in there, we'll have some military checkpoints, whatever. We'll just roll through and have a good day.
The day had come to hit the dangerous Sach Pass. Time was not on our side, and we desperately needed to overcome the sketchy mountain road to reach the Kashmir border, where we would finally find out if we could make it back to Srinagar. The tension of not knowing if it was possible was literally eating us up inside.
Off the rock, onto the wood.
Oh no!
Okay.
Oh!
That's nice. Yeah!
In between!
The Sach Pass went up and up and up. Everything turned to snow and glaciers. At the top, we found a weird hut booming out music with tables and chairs laid out on a glacier.
We're at like almost 4,500 meters. And we're having lunch on top of snow in August.
Come on, I'm gonna pass out. Oh, my head.
Guys, what are we eating?
You look like a cat.
It's fair to say that the altitude was definitely hitting us. For such a difficult road, I just couldn't believe that there was a coffee shop at the top. As we descended, locals started to warn us that Kashmir was already on gas lockdown. With no working gas stations between us and Srinagar, the chances of reaching our base were now looking like nil. We still had the option to bail out through Killar back to Manali. but this would have been an all-nighter. As usual, we decided to truck on and to tackle the difficult decisions later. Death-defying cliff edges, cameras don't do this road justice. This was scary.
How many people?
9 people.
9 people. 1 year.
9 plus 1.
Yeah.
10.
We accidentally passed the last bailout option through Kalar. It seems that fate had made the difficult decision for us. We were heading for Srinagar. We had just 2 concerns, the gas shortages and the rising political tensions.
It's intense.
To describe the situation, we went through a military checkpoint and got gas, but we only got 2 liters of gas amongst 4 bikes.
We're begging people for gas.
We basically need 20 liters, if not more. I have a long day in front of us.
And it's still, everyone is like, you can't go to Srinagar. And I'm like, well, we're tourists, maybe we can. Like,
But we do keep getting through every checkpoint, and locals don't get through the checkpoints anymore. So we've noticed 2 locals get turned away, but then we ride on through. So
I feel another bet coming up. Will we make it with the gas?
oh, don't jinx that.
We inched our way forward, checkpoint after checkpoint. They asked us lots of questions, but ultimately they didn't know how to process us and just let us through. With a checkpoint around every 20 minutes of driving and seemingly no communication between them, it made for very slow progress. These checkpoints were in place to lock Kashmir people into small geographical zones. This controlled information flow and prevented them from the potential of uprising and rioting. The group's refusal to carry gas cans to save weight may have been a running joke at the start of the journey, but it was a real issue now. The situation for the Kashmir people was shocking, and overall events were much larger than some stupid tourists on motorbikes who had run out of gas. It was looking like no one was in a position to help, and running out of gas was becoming a very real threat. We were not going to make it and found ourselves begging for gas. Despite the poverty being forced on the locals, someone, a teacher, donated us 2 liters of gas. This became a golden gem that we needed to protect at all costs.
Someone who's not going to lose it, and whoever has this, don't go at the back. I think here, if they say no, we just need to get our money. They do have it.
This was a very tense moment when we found a gas station that might be open and would see us through all the way to Srinagar.
Never in our lives have we been this excited to get gas. Like, this is make or break right here. A lot of talking. It's going in, it's going in. Yeah. Oh my god.
More and more checkpoints, but we were getting there. We just had 1 mountain pass left between us and Srinagar. With the end in sight, emotions were running high and concentration began to suffer. This was a steep and slippery pass. Physically and mentally exhausted, we found ourselves descending the final mountain pass in sunshine. The roads began to open up, the checkpoints seemed to disappear, and we cruised the highway back into Srinagar. We rolled into the city that was on complete lockdown, advertised worldwide as an incredibly dangerous place to be. All tourists had already been evacuated from the area. We opted to stay in the Sheraton, a place with both army and security surrounding the complex. This was a journey that we will never forget.
Good trip. Best road for me was Satch Pass and that other crazy day where we did the sand road. Really cool.
Pangong Lake.
But the whole, like the first 7 days was just nice driving.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of drama with the crash, flat tires, arranging trucks, that kind of stuff. Good driving. And then the second half was all this panic over, can we get back to Srinagar and our flights, no internet, war zone stuff. Don't go to Srinagar, it's dangerous.
We had that.
That was a whole week of that, causing stress, lots of ups and downs, but good holiday.
Absolutely. All right, Fran, what do you think?
Best trip ever. India's the best country I've been in, I think so. It really went against my original idea or image of India that I thought. Favorite day was Satch Pass and the Cliffhanger Road, Kashmir. Solid stuff, man. I'm pretty satisfied. thought we had to break our original route. Instead, we did more, and we got to see a bit of the mountains, a bit of Kashmir, a bit of real India too. Solid times. City is pretty on lockdown, so I do want them to figure their shit out here because it's a beautiful place and people are very friendly.
Vince?
Favorite road, definitely Sach Pass. I think the lake, the sand driving was amazing. Destroyed the bike, really good. The whole drama about Srinagar, I kind of knew it was blown up, so well, I just had a feeling it was blown up. So yeah, we made it. Best trip so far. Let's hope next year is better, huh? Even better.
We're up. And as I agree with everybody, Sach Pass, Pangong Lake, and the Cliff Road. I damn near thought I was gonna be washed out by the stream on the Cliff Road and fall about at least 1,500 meters. And I personally didn't think we'd make it this far to Srinagar. And here we are, we're going to the airport.
We're in a city, every single gas station's closed. So we had 300k to go and we were on E. With no way of getting gas.
And we thankfully found it. John here and Vince ran into a very lovely couple.
Who donated 2 liters?
2 liters.
2 liters of gas, and that was enough to get us to the city where there happened to be one open gas station.
Despite that, there's a gas shortage in the whole area. They're willing to give it to us for free.
But what normally as a tourist, you're like, you know, a bit of money and we can bail ourselves out. That was my thinking at the time. You know, we got money, there'll be a way. But as we got into, where was it? Kashmir, you realise it's just more than just a stupid tourist with no gas. Like, there's army everywhere, they were not interested in our problems. Like, is there gas or not? Well, we don't care. So it was serious. If we ran out of gas there, we would have been stuck, I think. It was not something that money could just bail you out of. There was no other
The locals
cars.
couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, the locals were stuck as well. So we were lucky.
We were definitely lucky. I'm pretty sure that the gas station that was open was only military, and we lucked out.